Remember that question? I've heard people say sprinting is 90% just genetics. I know it's not an exact science, but does that basically mean that my PB is 11.7 off not much sprint training, so my PB with training would max out at 10% faster, 10.53 also? This question has got me thinking. Preach! Testify! If sprinting's just 90% genetics, does that mean that the old foot race is going to end up like the Sony Walkman, a nostalgia piece in films like Guardians of the Galaxy? Are we just going to analyse who's got the purest form of ACTN3 and then just pop them on a podium somewhere? Are people just going to send their best genetic representative to a stadium and you've got some massive genetic profiling machine there and you take a pinprick and then you get a medal? Woohoo! A win! No training! In your face! I don't think so. Because even if you've got the gene with the lowest incidence of mutation, you still got to live in an environment that allows it to be expressed. Now let's just touch on environment for a second. Damn trains. Environment in sports equals training, like sprint intervals, plyometrics, weights. But that's really narrow. Training is part of your environment, but your environment isn't only training. That is a Tarantino line.
My ass may be dumb, but I ain't no dumbass.
Training in the broad sense is pretty much everything that happens from conception. Ma and Pa donate equally to the gene pool, but after that, Ma is the incubator for 9 months, and that's where the environment starts. I mean, that's why we're pro-folic acid and anti-crack mums. But genetics and environment always seem to be presented like a relay handover. Genetics is the incoming runner, and if you've got talent, then he's coming in hot. The outgoing run is environment, and if he's on point, you've got yourself a smooth handover, and it's a Jamaican victory. But if you've got mediocre genetics or poor environment, you're fumbling the handover and you're dropping the baton. USA! 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 Don't get all jingoistic, the British have dropped the baton plenty of times too. It's just easier to find US fails on YouTube. But I think I've got another way of looking at it, although this is coming from a guy with no genetics degree. It's more like a team keepy-uppy challenge, you know, to me, to you, to me, to you. See, they're both at work at all times in your life, bouncing it back and forwards between each other, and I think that's what makes it really complicated. How many carriages in this train? And I sense that many young children are trying to use science to predict whether they have a winning or losing hand. But science isn't sophisticated enough to work out that kind of complex equation. Right, now let's move on to this 10% improvement, because that's just a mean average. I don't mean mean as in nasty, I mean mean as in like middle. And this average would only be right for a slither of the population, exactly equal to the number of people who would improve by 10%. If you're increasing by any other number, then it's wrong. And being elite in sport or any physical endeavour is all about being outside the average. You want to be a Rick James super freak.
She's a very kinky girl, the kind you don't take home to mother.
And if you're ill or unhealthy, I understand you're hoping for an average result. That's like failing constantly in your mock test and then praying for a C+ in the exam. But if you're shooting for the big time, scientific averages are the path to mediocrity. As in my last video, but it's worth repeating, the fastest way to the top is to uncover and solve your limiting factors. Rinse and repeat, rinse and repeat, rinse and repeat. And by the way, it's the best way to avoid injury, because that's what injury is. It's the physical manifestation of a limiting factor. So my advice to you is to focus on solving your current limiting factor, which I said in the other video, so at least I'm being consistent, rather than believing there's some sort of arbitrary, mythical 10% improvement given to you by Larry Labco, and that you're going to tap out at 10.53. So again, good luck with it, and best wishes to you, sir. Bust me a thumbs up, because let me tell you something.
Bustin' makes me feel good.
And if you like my vibe, please subscribe. Woo! Woo!